everybody, to another episode of the Blazer Victory Podcast. John Duncan here, and of course, I'm joined as always with my co-host Darion Smith, Jimmy Marion. Guys, UAB advances in basketball to the NIT quarterfinals. It's exciting. Trip to Nashville. Hopefully, a lot of Blazer fans can make that trip on Wednesday evening. But before we get to talking about basketball further, this afternoon, well, you're listening to this probably Tuesday morning, Monday afternoon, I was able to, after practice, I was able to talk with offensive coordinator, UAB football, Alex Mortensen. Dropped a 14-minute interview. Alex, thanks again for talking with me for 14 minutes. I thought it was a very solid interview. So if you have missed it, go to blazervictory.com, and we got you covered. Click on that interview. Let us know what you think. Darion, Jimmy, I just want to make sure that the audience knows that even though it's just me at the practice facility, during the spring ball practice, doing these interviews, Darion and Jimmy both do a great job helping me prep for these interviews and just giving great insight. So even though it's just me at the facility, I want our listening audience to know that it is a joint effort from the Blazer Victory Podcast. So thanks again, fellas. You both gave me some really good questions and insight on the Mortensen interview, and can't wait to do more interviews throughout this spring ball practice.
Hey man, we're the crew pit, We're the crew pit, man. You get out there and make it happen. That's how a team's supposed to work.
Well, guys, we can talk some basketball now. UAB defeats Morehead State in the second round of the NIT. Not even beats, just straight up dominates. 77-59. And Jimmy, what did we say last episode? What did UAB need to do to win this ball game?
We need to dominate the paint, take it down low, score down low, grab them boards. And that was a butt whooping, John. Call it what it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I thought they were going to grab me from the media stand to come out there and play for them. The way I was grabbing those out of bounds balls.
Yeah. You know what I thought? I was thinking in my head, man, maybe we need to set something on Twitter called something with the Jimmy halftime mark or something, because in my head, it's almost like you branded something, Jimmy. In my head, you were saying, oh, I feel good if we're up 10, 12, 13 points at halftime, and then we can go ahead and put them. So I was sitting there looking at it. I was like, my Jimmy meter was going off, and when I was like, man, we can't break these. we can't get below this number. So we went up at, I believe, 12 at half. I was like, oh man, that was right at the Jimmy mark. That was like the first number he said. So I felt good for the rest of the game.
Check them boxes, man.
Yeah, we got to start it, and now on social media we're looking for our Jimmy. I don't know what we should call it. The Jimmy marks or
Markers,
something. It has
something.
Yeah, it has to be something to where what are we looking at by halftime, and then we can have our complete game. But our halftime is helping us keeping up with the game and the marks that we're hitting. So I like the idea of that, because that was just stuck in my head for whatever reason. I was like, we gotta hit these marks. Jimmy says so.
Uh-huh. That's right. Hey, and if you're not following Jimmy on Twitter, give him a follow at UAB Athletics Fan. Some great insight on Twitter. And guys, I was thinking, we did that Twitter space, at halftime of the Conference USA Championship game against FAU, and I know how that game went, but I thought it was kind of fun to do that Twitter space at halftime. So that might be, if that's something that our listener base enjoyed on Twitter. If you're not following Blazer Victory on Twitter, at BlazerPod, give us a follow. But I mean, that might be something going forward, for football season too. Hey, if we're all chilling, hop on Twitter space and talk for 10 minutes. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So, and Jimmy gave great insight during that Twitter space too, where, he was going on the check marks as well. So that might be something that we can do going forward, if that's something our listener base would like.
All right. We need our Jimmy checkpoints. There we go. We need our Jimmy checkpoints going forward. He has to put it out on social media before every game. check marks that we are looking to hit by halftime. And, it's optional if he wants to do it at the end of the game. But we need our halftime checkpoints. it was stuck in my head. And then we can do the Twitter Spaces. I was wondering how we would do that, but we got plenty of time to think about that for football games at halftime. If our listeners want that, pretty sure they'll interact with us and let us know.
Hey, I like the Twitter space too. We had more people hop on than I was anticipating for that first one. It was cool to get Trey, on there as well.
Especially considering how the game was going, I was like, nobody's gonna hop on.
Yes, I like any opportunity to get some other people like in the fan base, other fans like involved, and to hear their insight as well. So yeah, I'm definitely down to do more of those in the future.
And I don't know if I've ever shared this with y'all, Darion. I don't think I've shared this with you, but like I always envision like Blazer Victory 5-6 years from now, maybe having like a call-in like show, like kind of do a live. You know how we do like our instant reaction podcast, like kind of have where the listeners, called in. I mean, no, we might have to be selective on some of these listeners.
We got to pre-screen them.
We got to edit
it.
Like a Paul Feinbaum thing. Oh my God! I can't believe I ever said this on the Blazer Victory associated with Paul Feinbaum. But yeah, I think that would be fun. But guys, back to the game. I mean, just a dominating effort inside. Trey Jemison, and I'm sure we'll get into Ty Brewer too. I thought was the huge story coming out of that ball game. But you look at points in the paint. I mean, just dominating. 40-30, and Morehead kind of creeped it a little close towards the latter half of the second half. But just dominating boards 44-30 in favor of UAB. Offensive boards 11-7, allowing second chance points. UAB to get 15 as opposed to Morehead just getting 4. So I was talking with Jimmy at halftime, and very strange to see Jelly perform the way he did. I don't know what, and that was something that AK said post game is like they weren't bad shots, and Darren, we've seen Jelly take some bad some crazy shots, and questionable, but I don't feel like any of those were questionable. He just was
it just didn't go in. It's like that. That's what basketball is. Make a miss. No matter if I've seen Steph Curry have a bad shooting night, anybody in the world can have a bad shooting night, and props to Jelly for not letting it affect his defense in the rest of his game. He didn't have a crazy amount of turnovers, or a lot of times I saw KJ Buffin do it one time, and it drove me nuts. I saw him feel like he should have got a call. He didn't get back on defense, and it led to an open transition 3. And moments like that swing games. Just because we were up about like 17 at that point, when KJ Buffin did it, we were down 14. Then they scored again. I think we end up calling a timeout, and I was like, that is how it starts, because you're not valuing the ball. You're not valuing each position properly. But Jelly did not let it affect. We're so used to seeing him score and hitting those big time threes and those heat checks that it may seem like it's affecting the rest of his game or whatever. But hey, we won the game by a lot of points. He was getting the ball to Ty Brewer. Ty Brewer was doing his thing in that mid-range, just too big, too tall. He's the most streaky guy. If he's hot, he is hot.
He is.
And I'm pretty sure we'll get into it with him more. But, man, if we can get that Ty Brewer for the rest of the tournament, we win the tournament. That's how I feel anyway.
Darion, who's the better player, peak John L. Davis or peak Ty Brewer? Who would you take?
Oh, you said peak John L?
Yeah, peak John L.
Peak John L is like he is like Super Saiyan. He is like LeBron in 09, So I mean, I gotta go peak John L. I don't know who's better. John L at his peak is like 30 points. 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 3 steals, 1 turnover,
He's
2
good,
blocks.
Man.
I'm like, who is this? Why does he just come out like this every 4 games? And he's just this crazy, X factor. But nah, I got to go peak John L. But peak Ty Brewer is he's a beast because nobody can stop him in the mid range.
He's such an X factor. It was earlier in the year, not too many weeks ago. He had the big game. Was that against Middle Tennessee at home? I think he had a big game against Middle.
Mm-hmm.
When we were talking about last game, we were talking about the need to force the ball inside and get the bigs going. And I thought it was really interesting. This is why AK is a coach and I'm just a fan. But, I'm thinking, hey, we got to get, take care of that or take advantage of that size down low with KJ and Trey. And then, AK focused on the mismatch with Ty Brewer at 6'7" against their guards. I thought it was so smart. And, we were talking early in the game and just how different of a team are we when we can come out early and get someone like a Ty Brewer involved to set the stage. That was huge to look up and see us up double digits for the majority of the first half and feel comfortable against a good basketball team. They may not have the talent, the elite talent, of some other teams, but don't forget, they just went on the road to a 1 seed in NIT and they pulled off a win. So we're just a completely different basketball team, and we can get someone else like a Ty Brewer, or we can get some of those specialty points off the bench from his brother, LA, or just to get someone like KJ involved, like we saw in the game prior, and not have to feed everything through Jelly. We love to see when Jelly happens and he just goes off, but we're just a completely different team when we can, have somebody else light it up like Ty did.
And, that's something that, AK said in his post-game presser that they're going to need Ty again. And I found it very interesting that Steve Irvine brought up that he asked Ty Brewer about his performance when he played at Southeast Louisiana. And he had a heck of a performance at Vanderbilt in the Memorial Gymnasium. We're playing there Wednesday. So, hey, he's comfortable there. So can he keep it going? I think we're going to really need KJ to step it up. Kind of had a down game. He had 8 points. But it was just Ty's night. It was Ty Brewer and the Trey Jemison show. Both of those guys. UAB really didn't need to do a whole lot. Jimmy, we were talking at half, I believe you had brought up, if you had told us that Jelly would only had, what, he have 2 points at half?
2 points at a layup.
Yeah, and UAB would be up by 12 points. Crazy. There's no way that happens. But different guys stepped up, and that's what this team needed. It just wasn't the Jelly show, but that's okay. It was the Ty Brewer and Trey Jemison show. So
one thing I wanted to did you guys see how much space Morehead State was giving Tony on the perimeter?
I was gonna transition right into that.
You go, Darion.
Yeah, I was gonna transition. I just wanted one more point on Ty Brewer. I think the thing about him that's so special. A lot of time I've been watching a lot of college basketball, as everybody else have, and been watching their brackets get ripped apart. I don't know who has an okay bracket at this point, but the difference between the NBA and college is you have those special select few that get drafted into the NBA, and it's so many less spots. You have to be special to play in the NBA. That's why you can see all those guys. They can get their own buckets most of the time. Because you got a Kawhi Leonard, then the next night you got LeBron James, and then the next night you got Steph Curry, then the next night it's the next night, it's always somebody super special. But in college you don't have that. It's just guys, and you kind of look and you see the difference. You have to manufacture points. I was wondering why is the NBA game so different than the college game? It's all these handoffs and back screens and post ups and these little hook shots in the college game. And a lot of guys in the college game can't get their own shots. They can't make tough shots. Man, that's one unique quality that Ty has. He can kind of give you a shoulder, kind of dribble in the lane, and he can hit that fadeaway tough 2-pointer. And actually, it's an okay shot because that's his shot. He's 6'7". He gets good elevation on his shot, and his shot is pretty pure, especially from that mid range. I kind of always think it's going in when he releases it. A lot of guys in college basketball can't do that. He's a release valve. He's a emergency, we can generate offense, throw it to him one-on-one, let him go to work in the mid range. So if we can get that version of Ty, I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if it was Jimmy and John. I know y'all talked about Javian, and he said at one point, he talked about his confidence. Was that you, Jimmy, when you mentioned his confidence, and was that you, John?
I don't know if it was me. It might have been Brad. I don't remember. We were talking as a group. Yeah, it could have been Brad.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it was Brad. He was talking about his confidence and how. And we forget that these guys are humans, that they aren't a skill set. They are human beings first with a skill set. So mentally, look at what's happening with Ben Simmons in the NBA right now. he has the yips, and I don't know what happened to him. Gladly, he already signed the max contract because his value on his next contract, does he get picked up at this point? He can't make a shot. He will not shoot a 3-pointer. This dude was an all-star. But that lets you know that the game is so much more mental. And I actually think that applies to Ty Brewer because you can't be that good and then sometimes you just fade away for 2 points, 1 for 7. All of a sudden, it's just weird. And so hopefully he has this confidence going forward because we like, hey, shoot the ball. We believe in you. Like, do your thing. Mm-hmm. Just like Tony, like that transition right there. Just
yes.
Just like Tony. And since you had started on it, I had wanted to make that point and I was going to transition there. But, John, what did you think about Tony and how he clutched 3'd them up toward the end?
Man, Tony, we've talked about him a lot this season with his defensive, scrappiness. But I mean, Tony came to play the other night in Bartow. I'm so glad to see him kind of develop as the season has gone on because I know, hey, they're going to need him next year with some of these guys leaving. But I did find it interesting that UAB only got to the free throw line 8 times against Morehead. I mean, granted, they didn't need it. But, I know they're going to need to get to the free throw line at Vandy more than 8 times to have a chance to beat the Commodores. But real quick, one other thing wanted to bring up, too, other than the free throw, was look at the assist. 16 assists to just 6 total turnovers. Like, there was one point in the ball game getting close to halftime that UAB only had, was it 1 turnover? It was only at least a couple. UAB played well offensively. It wasn't just, you go back to the FAU game and what are we seeing? Jelly chunk it up, Eric chuck it up. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
They found a way to get Ty involved. They found Tony, like we just mentioned, give him the chance, give him the opportunities to get the ball in the hoop. KJ Buffin, Trey Jemison. I mean, isn't Trey Jemison so much fun to watch other than the hook shot? When you see Trey cooking in the paint, that big fella, it's just special. I'm gonna miss him on the hardwood. But that's pretty much it though. UAB did what they were supposed to do against Morehead. I mean, this was a sub 200 KenPom team. That granted, hey, they found a way to win at Clemson. Down 15, they found a way to claw back and win. That was something that Andy Kennedy said to the guys, kept reminding them during the game. It's like, hey, we may be up double digits, but this is the same team just the other night that clawed their way back and beat a really good Clemson team on their home court. But overall, solid performance. Guys, anything else to add?
They're a well-coached basketball team, and I think it's possible that we see that coaching staff in the American next year with his name getting thrown around a little bit. If I heard right, I think that's 3 straight 20-win seasons for Morehead State. I may have misheard that, but I mean they've got some history of that program. I was just impressed with his post game too. He seems very confident, and you can tell that team was well coached. So again, we mentioned Brad earlier during the game. I was talking to Brad, and he pointed out, they weren't really shook by our 1-3-1. They handled it very well. They did a good job. I'm joking around about the butt whooping, but they did put a little bit of scare in me late in the game. Can I make this tweet about a butt whooping? It's like an 11-point game here late. But I just thought that they were well coached, and I definitely think that we might be seeing that coach again, potentially in the AAC next year. We'll see.
Yeah, and I thought, for us, first of all, that was a good point. I didn't think about us potentially seeing that staff in the AAC. So, listeners, that's something that we all should look out for to see what happens with him. Also, I thought the two things were a mark of a good team for us were, as John mentioned already, the turnovers. That we played a clean brand of basketball, and that's something that's been inconsistent with us throughout the year. So for us to be so crisp and sharp on that end was really, really encouraging. And also, we played a brand of offense that we could understand visually. Like, it wasn't the WTF. Like, what are we doing? It was even on the misses. The process was good. That's all I worry about. The ball, in basketball, you can't control if the ball is going to go in or out half the time. But what does the process look like? Like those Tony threes, those are the threes. If they aren't going to play you, Tony, you are a basketball player. Shoot that, drill that, show them what they, show them. Come on now, don't play with you like that. That's basketball, and that's all. That's still in the flow of the offense. All of Trey Jimison's shots. He was getting them deep in the post, mismatching and ones. Like all of our shots were very good in the flow. I like how Eric played, how he was getting downhill. He was finding little pop passes. So those are marks of a good team. And I think we showed that we are definitely a good team.
And real quick on Eric, 7 assists in this game.
One turnover.
And 1 lone turnover.
That's when you know Eric is in his bag. Then he hit a 3 as well.
Mm-hmm.
When he got a steal for a breakaway dunk. When he's doing all of this stuff, that's when Eric is at his peak efficiency as a player.
Hey, and we didn't talk about Taven. He didn't play a lot in the second half, but how cool was that to get one more Taven Lovin slam in Barco Arena? That was really, really cool to see. I know they posted a little short clip of it, but it was just awesome to see that one last time for the career leader in games played for UAB, right? So congrats to him.
I loved it. I love seeing Lovin, kind of hang on that rim a little bit, and he smiled as he sang. I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna miss this dude too.
That's another mark to know if we're having a good game. Is Taven Lovin smiling?
Yes.
Like honestly, if his body language is good, the team seems to be so picked up, probably because of his seniority in that locker room. He has a lot of clout. So if your leader is smiling and having fun, a lot of times the team will follow. Shout out to Mr. Lovin.
Yes. Well, all right. Well, UAB again beats down the Morehead State Eagles 77-59. If you guys want any more insight on that game, I did drop a post-game article on blazervictory.com. So go read that if you haven't. Again, blazervictory.com. But now UAB advances to the quarterfinals of the NIT to play at Vanderbilt Wednesday night at 6 o'clock. This game will be televised nationally on ESPN2. Guys, I feel like it's been a minute since we've been on ESPN or ESPN2 for basketball. It's been a minute.
Wasn't the last time I can remember, I feel like it was the COVID season. Was it that far back when we played Charlotte? It was like a Friday night, and I think we were on ESPN2 or ESPNU. I can't recall.
It was ESPNU. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I remember that. Because even the West Virginia game this year was on ESPN Plus. So
yeah, that was when AK did the sideline interview like live during the game. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that was a really good game. Now that for folks that are just now joining the UAB bandwagon, so that COVID season was really strange because they played the same team back-to-back days in the same arena. So UAB whooped up on them in the first game on national television, and then the next day they got. Or was that the game they got beat pretty bad? It was one they killed Charlotte the first game, and then the second game Charlotte just kind of took them to the woodshed.
I think we split.
Weird.
Yeah. I thought there was some joke about AK, like as soon as he was getting interviewed. I don't know if it was we went in a run or they went in a run, but I just remember AK just making like one of his just like hilarious remarks.
Oh man, I wish we could have AK mic'd up for entire games.
It'd be real.
And not Barstool related.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, big opportunity. Hey, NIT quarterfinals. Can UAB go 3-0 against the SEC this year? Already beat Georgia, already beat South Carolina. AK and teams got a third opportunity here. Place is going to be, I think it's going to be packed. We were talking before we started recording. It looked like, they might get 14,000 in there for a weeknight game. So UAB fans, if you're thinking about making the trip, I would suggest you go to Vanderbilt's website right now and pick up a ticket if you can. Should be a great environment, but just studying, looking at the film for Vanderbilt, they are going to be missing their best player, Liam Robbins, their forward. He's been out for a couple weeks now. Had a season-ending, I think it was a leg injury. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've got good guard play. Like, really, the only film that I kind of watched the whole game on was this past game in the second round of Vanderbilt playing against Michigan. And man, Tyron Lawrence, like that dude. I mean, he's 6'4", 200. He's a junior from Georgia, but that guy can play. And he had a clutch layup to win the game for Vanderbilt. He had 24 points in that ball game. I mean, that guy's a stud. And UAB's backcourt, they're going to have to play good defense this Wednesday night to be able to get out of Memorial with a dub.
Yeah, I was able to watch that game live, that Michigan game. I was able to catch the Yale game and was able to do like some stats sheet watching or whatever. And seeing how important Liam Robinson was to that team, that is a major loss that can't be understated. He was their leading scorer. He was a good floor spacer as well. He could shoot the three. The guy averaged 3 blocks a game. He was a defensive menace. He got 7 rebounds a game. He's a 7-footer. A 7-footer that can block shots, rebound, and shoot the three is an NBA player, guys. He's going to have a good career.
No doubt.
So it's very impressive the traits he has. It's a unicorn-like traits. So that's just huge. That can't be undersold. And like you said, the guy that tops out on film, you can see his stats is Tyron Lawrence, number 0. He can get in there. He can create his own shot. He has the most skill out of everybody. What I mean by he has the most skill is like he has the most complete all around game. It's kind of hard to try to force him into one thing. You know, the other guy that kind of popped off was number 5. He came in and was able to make his presence known. Was Ezra Manjone, I think his name is, right? So he's been getting a lot of more playing time, I think, due to injuries or whatever, but he's been shining. He's like a 6-foot point guard, but he has a weakness. He has made some shots. I wouldn't Tony him at all. Like, I would soft close out to him. I would make him shoot the ball, make him shoot the basketball, but he can penetrate and he can find guys. He's a good passer and he's a good finisher for his size. You think, oh, he's a small guy. No, he's a guy that can really finish through contact. And so it's the 3 guards, them 2 and Tyron Lawrence, the other guard. He's another guy. He's a decent. If it's 2 guys that I'm gonna close out, well, it's 3 guys. But Tyron Lawrence, he's another guy. He can get hot. He can hit shots. He has good size. He's 6'6", so he's like a pro size shooting guard. You know, he's not a small 6'6" neither, and he got some size on him, so he's able to shoot over people. His game doesn't rely on quickness or anything like that too much. He has some power to it and just can rise and shoot over you. So the other guys, you got Quentin Millora-Brown, who is filling in. He's a good physical center. He's been doing a good job filling in for Liam Robbins. I like him as a player. I think him and Trey will be a good matchup. I think Trey is, in my opinion, a little bit better than him. But I like him though. I wouldn't sleep on him at all. He can get in there and get physical. He can block some shots. He can dunk the ball. Big guy, about 6'10". So I'm anxious to see what happens there. And the other guy that they usually have in there, if I'm not mistaken, was a freshman, Colin Smith, about 6'8", but he is in there to shoot the ball. That is what he's there for. He's a stretch 4. You know, he'll get inside, mix it up, whatever, just because he naturally has size, but that ain't really his game. He's going to shoot the ball. The other guys are going to drive, he's going to shoot. If he has the ball, I would hard close out to him on the 3-point line because that's where he's going to get it. Make him drive and make him make a play on the court. That's it. I think their team, they have a good team, but I think they're beatable because they're scoutable. And you can see definite weaknesses and definite strengths. So I think we have a lot to work with. They pretty solid on defense. I mean, they weren't need anything to where it was like special, honestly. And I'm not saying this to throw shots. Like, I don't think. Well, I like Tyler Lawrence, but I was like, like I, I think FAU is a better team. I think North Texas was a better team. I think Middle Tennessee on certain days can get them. I mean, it's a team that lost to Southern Miss. I'm not saying that this is a bad team. I'm not even saying that this is a game that we should win. The bias in me is going to say that we should win it because I think we're a more complete team. I think the parts fit better. I think we're less scoutable. I think we have more counters to offer, put it that way. I think they have to play a certain way. And I think they have a plan A. I don't think it's many plan Bs unless somebody just randomly John L. Davis us, But I think they have to play a certain way. I think Tyron Lawrence and I think Ezra Manjon, and I think what's the other guard name? I forgot the other guard name. Jordan Wright? Yeah, Jordan Wright. I think those guys have to score. They have to score 15 and up, all three of them at least. I think if you take one of them out, you got a shot. If you take two of them out, we should win. If you make two of them inefficient, those are the guys, where we can have Eric Gaines, Jelly Walker, L.A. Brewer, Trey Jimson, KJ Buffin. We have all these guys, Javian Davis. They all can do something offensively. They don't have that luxury of that. They have those three guys because of the injury to Liam Robbins. They had Liam Robbins, I'll be kind of like, ooh. Yeah. All right, guys. But they don't, unfortunately. So I actually like our chances here.
It's interesting in this matchup because we actually have some common opponents to look at. This is a non-conference foe, but they, as Darion has mentioned, played Southern Miss. They lost to Southern Miss. That was an early November game. Funny stuff happens early in the year, but, still Southern Miss was able to go into what I would presume to be a hostile environment and come out of there with a road win, which is impressive. And Vanderbilt's also played Morehead State. Funny enough, they put an extra butt whooping on Morehead State. And that was they did pretty good. It was 76-43, so they handled Morehead State. And is that surprising if they had Liam Robbins, down low, going against them? That'd be tough. They played South Carolina twice. It took them to overtime once against South Carolina at home, and then they won at South Carolina by 11. So relatively close matchups. And then they defeated Georgia by 3, another common opponent. So at least we've got some sample size here of some common opponents. John's already mentioned the environment. I think out of everything, that's what concerns me the most, is thinking about us going into an environment that we're not accustomed to. Conference USA throughout the years, whether it's an Old Dominion or a Western Kentucky, has put 5,000-6,000 in there. But to compare that to what I would assume is going to be at least 11 or 12,000, that's a totally different feel. Lucky for us, there will be Blazer fans in attendance, so there will be, some juice for us, which will be a little uncommon than your regular just non-conference game where you might have like 50, home fans that make the trip. So that should help. But really that truly for me is like the most difficult thing for me to overcome, just because we don't get placed in that position very often, so we just don't have that experience. But speaking of experience,
but to that point real quick, KJ come from Ole Miss. Javian came from Mississippi State and Alabama.
Eric with LSU,
and Eric came from LSU. Like, we got guys that played in that conference and they're used to it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah, they've got some experience, and we've got that man on the sidelines, AK, who's been in that building before. AK looks at these games and he's excited about it. He doesn't fear it one bit, and that carries a lot of energy to that locker room. So, I hope that they can overcome that piece, and, that'll be a big key to the game. Speaking of keys to the game, for me, going back to the whole hostile environment, it's going to be key for us to get off to a good start. Let's not go in there and have Vanderbilt hit 3 threes. It's 9-0. It's timeout. We're going to the huddle. We've got to, reconvene. We've got to get off to a good start. This year, when Vandy is leading at halftime, they're 17-3 versus 3-10 when they trail at halftime. So that's going to be a key for us to have a halftime lead. The way we can jump on the Twitter space and be, hey, we're leading and they're 3-10 when they're trailing at halftime. So we got this under control. Also, for me, there at the end of the game, I didn't watch the Michigan game, but from what I understand, they had a huge comeback there in the last minute. And I can only assume that they were pressing full court. Is that what they were doing? So,
Yep.
For those of you in the podcast, I'm getting some head shakes. Yes. So for me, looking at other keys of the game is how we're going to handle that press if we see it. I don't know if they were doing some of the press early. I wouldn't think so because they're not super deep right now. But, if we are ahead or if it's close and we're getting pressed late, we've talked about in a couple podcasts earlier about getting the ball in off the baseline, getting the ball across half court in those, situations. I know we have the guard play to do it, but sometimes we just kind of, make a few mistakes here and there. So we got to be super weary of that. Again, I didn't watch the Michigan game. My assumption would be that, he's going to have, he being Jerry Stackhouse, a lot of ISO plays with his guards. Y'all reference, how good their guards are. So we're going to have to guard one-on-one. That's going to be key. You have to get in our stance and make sure they're not getting bias and, and beating us off the dribble. That's going to be key. And, Darion did a good job earlier on touching base on some of their key contributors. And what's funny is I think it's pretty easy to say, here's their primary contributor and here's their secondary contributor that can also be their primary contributor. Here's their two guys. But who is their third guy? I think that we would struggle to say who is their third guy. And part of that is because you have referenced the injury to their big man. And what we haven't referenced yet is they also had a guy hit the portal here, a forward that's 6'8", 215, 220, whatever he is. I think his last name's Stute. So that means that in their first 7 or 8 guy rotation, they've had one loss to injury and another one lost to the transfer portal, both 6'8" or taller. So for me, I think it actually is critical that we don't let a third guy go off. So they're at home, and to me, at home, you're gonna have some of the home cooking. You have that extra confidence coming in the game. We can't have that third guy come off the bench or that third starter that might be averaging 8 points get 18 on us. You know what I'm saying? If the first two guys want to have a good game and get 15 plus, I think we can withstand that because we do have so many more options. But it's going to be critical, in my opinion, that we don't have that third guy go off on us, whoever that is. So, outside of that, the only other note I had was they've been a lot of close ball games. So I forgot who we were talking about earlier in a different podcast, John, about their luck rating. Do you recall who we were talking about that was lucky? Who were we talking about?
Morehead State and Southern Miss. The last two teams.
Okay, so the last two games. So this is another game in which Vandy is 16 when you look at the luck rating. So they've played in a lot of close games, and those games have been favorable. They've won 12 out of their last 14 games. So again, those are things I'm thinking about. Is how do we handle the environment? And that bleeds into how do we start the game? Can we hang in tight? Can we get a halftime lead that completely changes the script? Don't let a third guy go off. And then rebound. They don't have the size that they did earlier in the season. What an awesome opportunity. We're going on the road. It's a 2-point spread. We're going to have some Blazer fans in the building, national audience, trip to Vegas on the line. This is something that, they talked about the sting of losing that championship game. This is like just such an awesome opportunity. I know the guys on this team and for the fans that go will remember for a long, long time. So hopefully we can get the job done.
John, we're going to need something like Jimmy, check points or something like. We're going to need something before. That's all I could think about beforehand, like Jimmy, check points.
I love it. Just real quick on that, Jimmy, you talking about the luck factor. I mean, it was a miracle that Vanderbilt was able to pull that game out. But they were full court pressing at the end. Got a couple of lucky turnovers that went Vanderbilt's way, and just a couple of lay-ins, and boom, there they are. advancing to the quarterfinals. But I did want to note Michigan's big center, he's 7'1", but Dickinson, he ate that whole game like inside against Vanderbilt. I think he ended up with 21 points, but he went 9 of 16 from the field. If we can have just we can't trade, but if we can have a sort of similar performance from Trey Jemison or Javian Davis, and we talked about SEC, Javian Davis came from Mississippi State and Alabama, so he's got SEC experience.
I forgot to say Trey Jemison came from Clemson.
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
So we've got guys. So if they can work it down low and get good looks and take advantage of those opportunities, then I do think UAB can pull out this win. And as Jimmy just mentioned, there's a super tight spread at 2 points. But it does scare me, going on the road where Vanderbilt is 14-5 in that gym, and they've had a couple lucky games. I think they beat Auburn in there. Darn near almost beat Alabama. And we see what just happened the other day with Michigan. So it is going to be intimidating, but the key, in my opinion, that Jimmy just mentioned, it's going to be the first few minutes, because if UAB can jump out on them early, get some confidence going early on, then I like our chances. But if UAB starts missing a lot of shots and Vandy, Lawrence gets hot, hits a couple threes, we look away and it's 12-2 or something like that, and we see heads down like we did in that Conference USA Championship game, then might have to leave early and head back down to Birmingham. But I like it. Darion just said, this team is battle tested. So I look forward, and AK is going to treat this, as a great opportunity. So I'm sure the guys will see this as a great opportunity. And like Jimmy just mentioned, hey, trip to Vegas on the line. So let's go in here and see what the guys can do.
You know what else is on the line? What's right there in front of us? A potential rematch with our guy, UNT, Tyler Perry. It's still there. They won.
Hey, listen, and they've been handling business. They beat the hell out of Sam Houston
16
State.
16 threes.
Future Conference USA, Sam Houston State.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to lose their coach too. Coaching carousel.
But yeah, I like, just going back to the game, I also like to look at heights and how we match up. UAB for a mid-major, we are the size that we have is not mid-major-ish. Like, we have a very competent, especially with Ty Brewer in the starting lineup. So you got Ezra Manjone. I say his name like he's French. Manjone, I guess that's how you say it. But he's, like I said, he's only 6 foot. Bam, there you go, Jelly. There's your matchup. Their guard, Tyron Lawrence. He's 6'4". It depends on who we're gonna have starting at the 2 guard. Lately we've been having Taven. Has he been starting at that 2 guard?
Yeah.
He's the same size as Tyron Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
He has about the same amount of athletic ability, even though I love Tyron Lawrence's skill with the rock. Then you have Jordan Wright, who's the 6'6" guard. Ty Brewer, bam, there you go. They match up really, really well. They have the freshman Ford, who's only a 3-point shooter, but KJ Buffin can eat that on the boards all day. Then their center, of course, match up with Trey Jemison. And I feel like Trey Jemison and Javian Davis really is just one center combined. We can kind of take their stats and put it together, honestly, because they both play a good amount. They both bring a different skill set. So really, you can just see which one is which one is like really cooking, and then just stay with their center. But man, the more I look at it, I just like it. And like Jimmy said, and we talked about it. We talked about Tyron Lawrence, Jordan Wright, and Ezra Manjone. Take one out, you got a good chance. Take 2 of those 3, which I think Tyron Lawrence is going to be the consistent one. If you can take Jordan Wright and Ezra out, and both of those guys you can like game plan for. I see clear weaknesses. You take them out, I don't see how they win the game. I don't see where the other scoring come from. If you just stay, all you got to do is, like I said, the freshman, just stay with him on the 3-point line. He doesn't really offer much else. And the big, he's a big that's playing in the game. He's 6'10". He can jump, he can dunk, he can block shots. He's going to do some things, but I'd be surprised if he scored more than 10. because that's just not his game. That's just not what he does. And after that, they're not a very deep team. They lost their best player to injury. They lost he was a starter at one point. The other guy, they lost him to the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, you take a 9 deep rotation and you make it 7. And when you get down to games like this, that means a lot. That's like us losing Ladarius Brewer and us losing the Brewer brothers, and all of a sudden we don't have the depth that we have, just like that. So I think we have more depth, and I think we have, if not more talent, equal talent.
Yeah, so. This ain't to take nothing away from Vanderbilt's last win, but I don't know if we referenced already the fact that Michigan was without 2 of their top players, 2 guys that could be potentially first-round draft picks, and that's a big deal. So that's not to say that Vanderbilt would have lost the game, but that's just a part of the game, and that certainly led to the outcome. Something else cool. Did y'all hear? Again, I didn't watch the game, but I heard there was a lot of Michigan fans in attendance. Did y'all see them?
Yeah, they had a good sized crowd.
Yeah, I heard someone say there was upwards of close to 1,500 Michigan fans that showed up.
Oh,
yeah, that's wild. So yeah. I don't think we're gonna have that many fans there, but hopefully to John's point earlier, Blazer fans can show out.
Ooh,
definitely.
Travel well.
One more quick note I wanted to mention. If UAB can get this dub and get to 28 wins, that will be a single season record of wins in a season. UAB just got to 27 beating Morehead State, and that matched last season's 27 win record. So even more motivation. Hey, AK, 100. He's coached 100 games now at UAB too. So.
And who we would have next if we were to win? The winner out of
and I have that
Utah Valley in Cincinnati, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
UVU.
Hey, I'm looking at this, bro. We got a shot.
Hey, what kind of matchup would that be? AK, who coached at Cincy.
Oh, yes.
Right? And we got our guy coming in. Let's talk about recruiting for a second. We got a guy, KJ Satterfield, coming in, whose dad, I believe, played at Cincinnati. Am I just making that up? Who played in the NBA. So there's some ties there, with Cincinnati. Or I looked up Utah. Is it Utah Valley?
It's Utah Valley. I know nothing about them.
Utah Valley. So I saw they had like 27 wins. I was like looking at their roster. I'm like, they're out from the West Coast, so like they got to have some like players. And they had some starter from like Vegas, and I was like, of course they do. So like if at least if we got to the semifinals, they'd have some people there in the stands. But yeah, either matchup, Utah Valley, I think they had 27 wins, something like that. And then Cincinnati with some of the background with AK and the fact that they're in the American now, those would be 2 really cool matchups. And those are for sure, those would be on ESPN2 as well. So another national audience. And how cool would that be just for these 6 seniors to be able to go on like one last road trip to Vegas? It kind of has that feeling of like a bowl game, where it's like one last trip there at the end of the year. So that would be super cool for them.
As long as we don't have anything like the hangover, I'm cool with it.
And does North Texas, so they'll be listening, does North Texas play today? As in,
did you not get the hangover reference? Y'all didn't get the hangover reference.
Oh, of course I got it.
Oh, okay. Man, y'all quiet. Y'all quiet.
I'm gonna get that.
Y'all talk about Dragon Ball Z, man.
Hangover, Project X, all of it.
Okay, yeah.
Listen, I feel like I'm the most well-rounded guy. We can have another debate. You know what? We're gonna have a bonus pod just about this. I feel like I'm the most well-rounded one. Like what? Y'all name something what y'all don't think I don't know about, because y'all haven't done it yet.
Bro, a couple episodes ago, I asked you about that Metallica song. You said you didn't know that.
But I know Metallica though.
Good point, yeah.
I know Metallica. Like Jimmy didn't know. Jimmy thought Don Tolliver was a real estate agent.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'm not trying to sell my house right now. I don't care.
Real quick though, Darion, I was gonna say I think that was his best album.
See, I told you. You got that thing on repeat, huh?
Oh, like 25 times.
After the podcast, when you were talking about Don Tolliver, the first person I asked was my wife, Natalie, and she said, who? And so I didn't feel as bad.
She thought it was the Chick-fil-A branch manager or something, you know. So like we're gonna have to find something like that. What are you guys like? Do you guys know any about soccer? I know some about soccer.
No, I watch real football. Yeah.
See, look at there. Like y'all like true Americans. Like, what is that? You know. But yeah, man, we'll get it to. We'll have to do a bonus pod just to feel like I'm the most well-rounded guy on this panel here. We're gonna have to. I think John offered a lot with his you know, you collect records.
Yes.
Now that's a lane I don't know nothing about. So, but I actually find that interesting. So it feels like it's a vibe. If you get a drink, you sit out there, you let something play. What you got over there this year? I know we all off topic, but whatever. We here now. What you like to let play and let, you know, drink and just take an edge off?
I love everything. Like, you know, heavy metal, or, you know, I've got some country, some blues, jazz. Like, I've got it all. Yeah. Oh yeah, I see you, Darren, rocking out, man. But with records, like, I just love, you know, you actually hold something physical in your hand. Like, I feel like that is lost in today's world. You know, everything's on Spotify, Apple Music, wherever. You just, I don't know. I could go on a long tangent on that. Trust me.
I feel like in your past life you was like a DJ, like. I feel like you were
a little Manny Fresh, a little Manny Fresh.
Yeah, man, you was a little, you know. I think you came up in the 80s and 90s when rap was just in your past life. You probably was just a pure record vinyl spinning kind of guy. But I can also see you like, you know, guitar into some Willie Nelson. You know what I'm saying? I can see you being that type of guy too, man. But you got some flavor in you, John. You got some flavor.
Yeah, who doesn't go from Willie Nelson to Flavor Flav? I mean, all right, guys. We're 52 minutes. Darren, go ahead and send us out, bud.
Blazer Nation, let's ride.